Hello, welcome back. It's no secret that I wear a lot of dresses and skirts, but one thing that I actually don't own at all is a pinafore. So I thought I would take a moment today and make one. I kind of had to think a little bit about what is the difference between a dress and a pinafore. Where is that line actually? Because I feel like they often can be interchangeable. And I think they really, for the most part, are interchangeable. It kind of comes down more, in my opinion, to how they're styled. So sometimes a pinafore is really strictly a pinafore because I think they're usually styled with something underneath, like another long sleeve top, like a turtleneck, or maybe like a billowy top is often, for perfect cottagecore vibes underneath a pinafore. But a dress could maybe go either way. And often the back of a pinafore has that like either crisscross or another low cut V, but it doesn't necessarily have to. I've seen plenty of versions that don't. So I think that it's kind of up for interpretation, and I'm going to do my best to make a pinafore today that is going to have a deep V in the front and a deep V in the back. And I really want it to just be kind of those pieces, and I'm gonna see how it goes with making my own pattern. Basically, I took a pattern that already fit me and I just traced them so that I could mark up these without marking up the original. I'm going to do a little dart manipulation here, which is basically when you cut some of the darts out and kind of move them around to shift where you want that dart fullness to be. This particular pattern, the darts don't connect at a point, so there's no way to do that kind of hinge moment that you'll see in a second. So I'm just taking the darts out that are there, and then I'm going to use my ruler and connect them so I can find that central point. Once I have that point, I'm just cutting the rest of the dart out, and you'll see now if you leave just a teeny bit connected at the very tip, you can kind of swing the dart around in either direction and it will make a bigger dart in one spot so that you don't have a dart in another area. So I'm just taping that down to secure it. And then because I really wanted this to just be these kind of triangular dart pieces in the front, I am removing a lot of the underarm side. This kind of turns out to be a problem, which we will discuss later in the video, but for now it is what it is, and I'm cutting the front as well so that I can have that really deep V. Because this block I'm using, it isn't a very low neckline. Now you can see the pieces starting to come together. The back piece only had one dart, so there's no need to do any dart manipulation here. I'm just going to simply cut the arm side in the same spot that I did for the front. Now it's time to cut the fabric. I have actually made something with this fabric before, so you might see some smaller pieces. I'm just trying to do what I can with the scraps, and then I'll cut the rest from the larger yardage that's still left over. I'm just pinning all the darts in place as well as the front bodice pieces together at the center. Now comes the dilemma I have every time I am sewing something that needs a lining, and that is, what fabric do I use for the lining? I have this cheap plasticky feeling yellow lining fabric that I really hate using, but for some reason I struggle to bring myself to turn to the nice expensive fabrics for linings, because why? I don't know, nobody's going to see it. Why is that? But then I remembered I have this one lone silk pillowcase in my stash, and it has like a shiny side as well as a more matte side. I think it would be the perfect lining that I wouldn't feel bad about cutting up. As usual, it was pretty annoying to work with, but I am just pinning the front and the back at the shoulder seams for both main fabric and lining, and then I'm going to do the bag method to bring them together. This sort of turns out to be a mistake, as once I complete the bag lining method of sewing them right sides together and flipping them back out, I'm not really able to do any understitching at this point. The tube that this creates is a little bit too small. Additionally, because the silk is so annoying to cut and work with, the lining ended up being really floppy and weird. I tried some top stitching to secure it in place, but I really didn't love the look of it, so I decided to just stop for the night and sleep on it. So I redid the lining, this time with a purple quilting cotton, and this is the sort of fabric I use to line garments frequently, so that'll teach me to use nice fabrics for lining. And then in an effort to do this a little differently this time, I attached the waistbands, and I'm gonna sew on the quote-unquote side seam first so that I can successfully get some understitching in there and keep that lining in the right spot. To sew the understitching on the second side, which is now like within a fully enclosed tube, you just have to scrunch up the fabric a bit as you're reaching the center. And you may not be able to get all the way, that's fine. At this point, I'm feeling better, and I decided to pin the bodice to the mannequin in order to see where the back of the bodice should connect to the waistband. Hello. Okay, I just tried it on, and it was mostly successful. I felt like I know there's not really an arm side anymore, but around where the arm side starts to curve, it was really gapey. Not really gapey, but it was a bit gapey. So before I secure the back, because now is the time to do this change, I'm going to kind of open it up again on the inside and shave off like this amount. I have it pinned. Whatever that is, like half an inch, and just kind of like fade it in up here, taper it in, I mean, so I can hopefully minimize some of that gaping, because there's no side seam, there's nothing like pulling the curve around towards the back. So really, I think even though I chopped most of it off, it should have been like a really pretty much straight line down. Now that I'm thinking about it, I kept like a tiny bit of the curve like here in the front, but yeah, nothing's like pulling it around the body from the back like where the side seam would meet. So because of that, it's like standing away from the body. So I think if I just kind of shave that off and make it a mostly straight line instead of a curved one, not that it's like overly curved, but it has a tiny curve, I'm hoping that will fix it. Right, so in a last-ditch effort to save this, I am going to use a bodice piece from this pattern. Since it does have a side seam and my fabric was cut too narrow to have one, I am just piecing on this little rectangle of fabric so that I can cut it out from the commercial pattern piece. Oh look, it's the next day. The deep V in the back wasn't allowing the straps to stay nicely put on my shoulders, and it created a lot of weird gaping, so I decided it would just be best to recut the piece using the commercial pattern as well. But of course, I don't have enough purple fabric to recut, so this is the part where I think, how many linings does it take to make one garment? And I've gone ahead and remade the lining with the cream quilting cotton, and I'm just sewing the side seams now that I actually have them together. This pattern is done a little differently to how I was doing my original design. The bodice left and right pieces are separately made and then tacked together in the middle like so. Then they're just gathered down instead of how my original design had a big dart. Alright, finally on to the skirt. I have exactly 1 full yard left of this fabric, so I'm trying to use it as efficiently as possible. I used some string to create a line through the center, and then I moved each side opposite directions by about 5 inches. These will be my skirt panels. I'll have 1 piece on the fold and then 2 pieces not on the fold so that I can have a back zipper. I'm just pinking all of the skirt seams. This is what I did for my last wool skirt using the same fabric, and it has held perfectly. I would note that this garment will never go in a washing machine. I'm adding my original waistband in an effort to save some of my original design. I later regret this, but it is what it is. Thing that's like maybe a little bit silly is that I shouldn't have done the waistband before installing the zipper, because I can't now, you know, it would have been nice to do, I don't know if it has a name, but just a zipper that is like in between the main fabric and the lining, like I do that sometimes. I think I've done that on my previous skirt, so I can't do that now because I can't flip it inside out. I mean, I could undo this, but I really don't want to. So I think what I'm gonna do, I already just like basted these clothes, and I'm gonna treat them like one layer and just do a zipper. I mean, to the outside it won't look any different, but maybe I'll finish this edge with my serger, then it can just flip over. It'll be a much easier zipper install, so at least there's that. Once the zipper was in, I did the tiniest row of top stitching along the waistband just to ensure that it stayed nice and flat. Then I folded the lining over the seams on the inside and I sewed it down from the top, mimicking that top stitching I did. You could just stitch in the ditch and see nothing at all, but since the top part of the waistband top stitching was visible, I figured why not? And then after a quick hem, the pinafore / possibly dress is done. I think overall I do like this and I've already worn it out. My one regret is that I kept the original waistband from my design, which was intended to be worn lower on the waist. I should have gone with the waistband included in the pattern, but at that point I had just felt like there was nothing left of my original design anymore. But it's okay. Wearing it with the belt gives a similar illusion, so I think I'll keep it for now and maybe in the future I'll swap it out. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye!